you can see where that's going as far as a violation is concerned. So shortly after, I got an email from Ms. Gunshore stating that my son was going to be starting Guilford Park High School. I didn't understand because we'd never toured Guilford Park High School. I wasn't even given an option. It was just like a done deal, take it or leave it. There was no IEP to discuss this or no team involvement. It was all one person making this decision, or maybe more than one person behind the scenes, but she was in the forefront. I had questions about this school and I wanted to see it because I'm like, I can't send my son there when he had never even seen it and he needs to be comfortable with the environment. So I did some research on my own and I found out that this new high school was only at the time accepting 9th and 10th graders. The oldest student was 15 years old. My son was 21. Who was he going to interact with? Who was he going to graduate with? That made absolutely no sense. I remember having a conversation with Miss Allison Barmack from the Maryland State Department of Education in either late November or early December regarding my concerns about my daughter. I just so happened to ask some questions about my son and the placement. And I was like asking questions like, how come, no one is doing anything? Why isn't the superintendent responding? One of the things I remember her saying is that she had been in close connection with Howard County and she was following my son's case. Well, I was sending a lot of emails with complaints. However, she said, well, I thought everything was okay because I hadn't heard from you. But I was sending emails, copying her on them, and she was opening them. Howard County supposedly told her that everything was fine and, they were doing everything they were supposed to do. So I remember speaking to Miss Barmack about this whole placement issue regarding my son. And from what I understand, Howard County informed the state that my son was going to be placed at Guilford Park High School in August of 2023. However, he was not placed until January, 5 months later. Now, I was sending emails complaining, and if there was a discrepancy in what I had to say and what Howard County had to say, when my emails started coming in with complaints, you would think the state would have reached out to me to say, hey, parent, what's going on? No one reached out to me. No one responded to my emails from the state. Nothing. So Howard County was basically filling the state's head with all kinds of foolishness that was not true. Howard County has a way of twisting its words, making everything so confusing. But I also realized the Maryland State Department of Education does the same thing. So we went on the tour of the school and I met with his teacher, who I found out was also one of his behavior supports. So since there was so much concern about his behavior and him needing this special program, I was concerned as to why they would assign a female staff and a very short, petite female at that. The second behavior staff had not even gone through her whole process of being onboarded to Howard County. So the only person who was going to be in the classroom with him was his teacher. And I certainly didn't feel comfortable with that. There were no other students. He was literally secluded in a part of the building and isolated in a classroom by himself with just his teacher, no peers. I was so unbelievably shocked. I couldn't even figure this thing out. I had a problem with that, but I said, well, let me give the program a chance so I can see how this works before I just turn it down. So I knew I had problems with it because when I got the schedule was so remedial. It was not anything for a student who was 21. My son had no transition plan. Matter of fact, he had no transition plan for over a year. During that time, he had no IEP. And now he really had no transition plan because he had an IEP. There were things on his schedule that were so remedial, I just couldn't believe the simplicity of it all. 30 minutes for check-in when you arrive, 30 minutes to check out when you leave. How are your feelings? That took 30 minutes. Then there was another set of that foolishness for 30 minutes at a different time during the day. Then there was 30 minutes for math, 30 minutes for reading, 30 minutes for job skills. There was time built in for iPad time. You could choose to take a nap or watch a movie. School started at 7:50 a.m. His bus picked him up at 9. School dismissed at 2:30-ish, 2:35. His dismissal was at 1:30. So he was not getting his hours. And on top of that, the schedule that he had was like for a kindergartner. So I sent a certified letter regarding all of my parental concerns. So in this certified letter, I addressed all of my concerns, not in any specific order, but I addressed all of my concerns. The first one was there were no age-related peers. My son, age 21, and all of the other students in this school were 15 and under. The second concern was the fact that my son was secluded in a certain part of the school. He was isolated in a classroom by himself, and he had no peers. On his IEP, one of his goals is peer interaction. He had no peers. So how do you interact? So that was my question. Ms. Gunshore went along with me on this tour, and I asked her, I said, social interaction is on his IEP. How is it that he will interact? Her response was, he can talk to his teacher. Wow. I reiterated the fact that this was an IEP goal. Her response to me was, he had to earn social interaction. So based on good behavior, he would be able to engage with other peers. First of all, there were no peers his age to relate to or to engage with, because I'm sure other parents would have a concern about their 15-year-old or 14-year-old engaging with a 21-year-old. So that just wasn't appropriate. Secondly, I have never seen it documented anywhere in any of the federal regulations or guidelines that a student has to earn services in order to meet his IEP goals. So good behavior, you can interact with the 15-year-olds. He had good behavior for a month straight. He never had an opportunity to interact. My next question to her was, well, this is his last year of school. Who is he going to graduate with? Well, being that there are no other seniors here, he'd have to graduate alone. That was just like a stab in the heart, because my son was looking forward to graduation, looking forward to being with his peers. And now he's in a situation where he is with no one. When he was at the Bancroft School, at least, he was socially interacting with his peers. He was interacting, doing work-related duties in the classroom setting. These were things that he needed to build on. Social skills. Because that is one of the problems that the majority of the students with autism, when they graduate, they have a deficit in that area. Social skills, transitioning, communication skills, things of that nature. So this was the time for him to get this. Not after he graduates, but now. When we went to go tour the public high school, he visited a classroom with like peers. And now he had no one. That was definitely a concern. The next concern was the fact that there was inappropriate behavior staff. Now, first of all, I was told that he could not start school unless both of the behavior staff were there. The second behavior staff was not on board until February 2024. So it was almost a month before this other staff started. Meanwhile, my son is in a classroom by himself with just his teacher. There's no cameras in there. There's nothing to protect him if anything happens. If there's a behavioral incident or if there's a complaint that something happened that shouldn't have happened, there's no one to vouch for him. No witnesses, nothing. That made me very uncomfortable.